This is Unit 0, Lesson 1, Ancient Greece. The objective for today is that students will be able to trace the development of the Western political ideas of the rule of law and illegitimacy of tyranny. Our essential question, how did the dominant thinking change throughout ancient Greece? Unit 0, Lesson 1, Vocabulary. This is a map of ancient Greece. So beginning with the beginning of ancient Greece and the first Greek civilization, the Minoans, who existed around 1750 BCE. That's colloquially known as before Christ existed. So that's around 4,000 years ago. The Minoans built the first Greek civilization on the island of Crete in the eastern Mediterranean Sea. The Minoans were sea traders who traveled to Egypt and Mesopotamia. They learned new ideas and technology from Egypt and Mesopotamia and adapted their culture based on these new ideas. They also adopted their polytheistic religion and gods from the Mesopotamian and the Egyptians. Polytheistic means the belief in more than one god, poly meaning more than one. Around 300 years later, in 1400 BCE, the Minoans disappeared. This is possibly from a natural disaster, according to historians. And the Mycenaeans, who were also sea traders, emerged. And they traded with Egypt and Mesopotamia just as the Minoans had, but they also traded with Sicily and Italy. The Mycenaeans learned many skills such as writing and other forms of ancient technology. These ideas and technology would have a lasting effect on Greek culture for the next 1,000 years or millennia. The Mycenaeans are best remembered for the Trojan War, which took place around 1250 BCE. This would be about 3,500 years ago. In this war, the Mycenaeans defeated the trading city of Troy. Much of what we know from this period comes from reading the epics of the poet Homer. An epic is a long poem that tells the story of a hero or heroes. The Iliad and the Odyssey give us clues about the lives of the ancient Greeks. This leads us to the rise of Greek city-states, which began building up around 500 BC, or around 2,700 years ago. Greece is made up of many isolated valleys and small islands. This geography prevented the Greeks from building a large empire like that of the Egyptians or the Mesopotamians in northern Africa. Instead, they built small city-states that often fought with one another for regional and local supremacy and sort of for dominance within the region. Between 750 BC and 500 BC, the Greek city-states tried different forms of government. At first, city-states were ruled by kings and queens. These are called monarchies. Then the landowning nobles won power as time passed, and this form of government is called an aristocracy, where the rich landowners and rich nobles acquired power. In some city-states, though, a middle class of merchants, farmers, and artisans gained power. This type of government, this type of governance, is called an oligarchy. The two most powerful city-states in ancient Greece during this time, after the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, were Athens and Sparta. Athens had a limited democracy, or government by the people. It was limited in that only male citizens could vote in the assembly, and laws were made by the assembly. So only male citizens were allowed any sort of say in what laws were around. Athens traded with other city-states of ancient Greece and provided for education for boys only, not for girls. Both Athens and Sparta shared the same language and believed in the same gods and had the same overall religious beliefs. But Sparta was a monarchy ruled by two kings, and Sparta primarily had a militaristic society. Boys were trained to be soldiers, and girls were trained to be mothers of soldiers and to have more boy kids. Trade and travel outside of Sparta was not allowed. Sparta tried to be sort of an individualistic nation unto themselves. Only men born in Sparta and over the age of 30 were considered citizens and allowed the rights of free individuals. And again, they shared the language, the gods, and religious beliefs with the Athenians of Athens. The Persian War was led by Persian's leader Xerxes, and he led a series of attacks on various Greek city-states. The first was at the Battle of Thermopylae, famous for its portrayal in the movie 300. Second was the Battle of Marathon, in which Pheidippides ran 26.2 miles to deliver the news of Athenian victory. The third battle in the Persian War was in 490 BCE, around 2,700 years ago, when the Persians attacked the city-state of Athens, and the Athenians were again victorious. Athens established themselves after defending itself multiple times against the Persian army as a powerful city-state in Greece, and believed the gods protected their city-state and the gods were on their side. Here's a map that shows the various routes the Persians took from the Persian Empire, which is in modern-day Turkey, just south of the Black Sea, into the Greek territory. And after the numerous defeats of the Persians, Athens enters a golden age, the age of Pericles. Pericles was a wise leader and leader of Athens. This is when Athens had a direct democracy, which meant all the male citizens had the right to vote and help run the government. Pericles pointed out that citizens had a special responsibility to participate in their government. Under his leadership, Athens became the cultural center of Greece. Many thinkers, writers, and artists came to Athens during this time to take part in the growth of this culture. Because of Athens' strength in defeating Persia during the Persian Wars, this had a tremendous impact on the organizing powers of the Greek city-states. And Athens organized the Delian League, an alliance with 150 Greek city-states and colonies in the Aegean region. Athens used the Delian League to create an Athenian empire. With Pericles as its leader, Athens enters this golden age. And the members, this 150 Greek city-states, each paid into the Delian League to help pay for this Athens empire. Sparta, remember the comparison between Athens and Sparta, Sparta eventually forms an opposing alliance with neutral city-states. Sparta and Athens were always at odds with each other in their various forms of government and how the society was run, whereas Athens was more open and democratically based and wanted to trade with other Greek city-states before they formed their league. Sparta was individualistic in nature and ruled by two monarchs and wanted to remain that way. So Sparta, after it formed its small alliance, they resented the Athenian wealth and power. They formed a league to promote oligarchy while Athens and its allies were still promoting democracy. This led to the Peloponnesian Wars, which broke out between both sides in 431 BCE. After 27 years of fighting, Sparta finally defeated Athens. But soon after, Sparta fell to Thebes, another Greek city-state. The Athenian democracy at the fall of the Peloponnesian Wars suffered tremendously, and the city declined while Greek city-states fought amongst themselves for almost 50 years. This was like a nationwide civil war, with many smaller Greek city-states fighting each other for supremacy in the region. See here a map of the Peloponnesian War between 431 and 404 BC with the Sparta and its allies covered in red and Athens and its allies represented by yellow. So the lasting legacy of the Greek philosophers and inventors, the thinkers, the artists that came out of this era was that Greek thinkers tried to understand the reasons for why things happened, why we had the Persians invading and the Persian Wars and the Battle of Thermopylae, why we had the Peloponnesian Wars, why all of this pain and suffering happened. Greek thinkers tried to understand the reasons why these things happened. They didn't just put their blind faith in a higher power, a divine power. The Greeks believed in the beauty and balance and order in the universe. Three of the most famous Greek philosophers were Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Beginning with Socrates, he developed the Socratic method, which was when we learned about beliefs and ideas by asking questions and probing others for information, thinking that the way to truth in life is through questioning everything around you. His ideas were in somewhat contrasting to Plato, who was a student of Socrates and famous for his literary works, The Republic. He believed government should control lives, and he wanted a government ruled by the best men and women. Plato argued that we should divide society into three classes: workers, philosophers, and soldiers. Soldiers protect the people, soldiers protect the city-state. Philosophers think about the best ways of doing things, and workers actually make everything happen. They put everything together. Plato believed that these three classes of society would lead to a more harmonious environment. Which leads us to Aristotle. So, as Socrates was a teacher to Plato, Plato was a teacher to Aristotle. Aristotle believed one strong and good philosopher king should rule. The influence of Aristotle's work on the physical sciences, such as physics and biology and anatomy, spread far and wide throughout Greece. Even so much that Alexander the Great became a student of Aristotle at Plato's intellectual academy. Some of the best art ever created was done by the Greeks during this period from 4,000 years ago to about 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, something like that. Greek art and architecture reflected the ideas of beauty and balance and order. Greek paintings and statues were lifelike, but also idealistic, meaning they portrayed individuals in near perfect form. The image to your left is the Parthenon, an important acropolis or high city built as the center city, or the city center in Athens. The Parthenon was a temple dedicated to the patron goddess of the city, Athena.